I'd like to call order the work session for Wyoming Valley West School District for Wednesday, September 7th at 6 p.m. Roll call, please.
Mr. Pazinski,
Here.
Mr. Damascus,
Here.
Mr. Hardwick,
Here.
Mr. Keating,
Here.
Mr. Usavage, Mr. Perfetto,
Here.
Mr. Majer, Mrs. Cassatt. Here. Mr. Camus.
Present. We have a quorum. Can I have a moment of silence? Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Tosh is absent this evening, so Mr. Rocky's taking over. Mr. Rocky, please.
Thank you, Mr. Camus. Just two announcements on behalf of Mr. Tosh. Opening to the 22-23 school year was yesterday, Tuesday, September 6th. And next week, we will have our Meet the Teachers night. Monday evening will be at the high school from 6 to 8 p.m. Tuesday will be at the middle school from 6 to 8 p.m. Wednesday, we'll have a school board meeting. So the elementary Meet the Teacher night will be held next Thursday from 6 to 8. That's all, Mr. Camus.
Thank you, Mr. Rocky. Before we move on to number 4, I'd like to just make a notation that there was a executive session held prior to this meeting for personnel items, contracts, and ongoing negotiations. Statements from interested citizens.
Hi, can you hear me good?
Yes.
Okay, Amy Carrozza from 44. I just had a quick question. It was about the safety and security grant. I just wondered if any of that had to do with like a proposal or a plan to utilize the school metal detectors in any of the schools this year.
Mr. Rocky, could you help with this?
Which number is that? Oh, the safe, is that on the agenda?
I didn't.
Oh, it's number 4.
I believe the items that were discussed within the safety and security grant had to do with doors. Mr. Rivera isn't here, but I believe that was the major item that came out of a recent audit was for door repair or replacements.
Oh, okay. Do you know if they'll be like, are you planning on using the metal detectors more this year with the resource officers?
There is a
that are
plan in place, yes.
Yes.
there? They're
Yep.
going to be.
Yes.
Okay, because I don't think they've started yet, though.
It will be at random. And there is a demonstration. Please don't quote me on this, but
It's in October, I think.
Early October.
Early October.
Early October? Awesome.
We're looking at another company. Mr. Dickman found that is it's a very nice system.
Oh.
And it'll speed up the process. So the board is looking into purchasing of it.
Yeah. I
They're
knew that-
actually scanning machines instead of metal detection machines.
That'd be great. Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. So under general recommended action items, is there any questions on would be 1 through 14?
We're just gonna have to clarify for the record, Mr. Camus, that United Heating and Air Conditioning backed out. That was a bid that was awarded last month. So the next lowest bidder is 3D Services Incorporated. So we're going to have to rescind the bid that was awarded because the company voluntarily backed out and award to the next lowest bidder at our meeting. And also on item number 8, the Larksville Borough School Resource Officer They asked to have their contract reduced from 4 to 2 years. And the attachment that's with our agenda contains a reimbursement table at 100%. That was placed there, we believe, in error. The solicitor negotiated an 83.33% reimbursement consistent with that of Plymouth and Kingston. So the table that will be included at our regular voting meeting will be at 83.33%.
And a 2-year term.
And a 2-year term.
Thank you, Mr. Keating. Anything else by anyone? Mr. Dabascus, for Athletics Committee, would you like to?
Yeah, I think we all know that our field gets a lot of use, our football field, and I think it'd be a good time just to, for budgetary purposes, to put out the bid for replacement of the turf at the stadium, just to get an idea what that would cost us, see if we could fit that in our budget for next year. I'm not sure if we could or can't, but I think we need a price on it.
You need to put a price. You need to put a price on the disposal of the existing field as well, and sometimes that's just as much as the new field. So make sure that's included in any bid proposal.
So would we like to,
Why wouldn't we direct Frank, the Director of Building and Grounds, just to obtain quotes, not formal bids, on what it may cost to replace and dispose of the turf at the football stadium?
absolutely, and I think as long as, you know, he gets some of the guidance on the June A&E, I think that'd be fine.
How old was the field?
So I think the field is about 12 years old now,
Has it
so
been
give or
maintained
take.
properly though? Because it's
Yes,
just-
yes. So technically, when they put it in, they
That's
said the
something-
life
Okay.
expectancy is 10 to 15 years. So I think we are getting to its life expectancy, and so I think it's just good to get an idea what that would cost. Now, Paul, I mean, from what I understand, to do that probably is about $1 million, give or take. So I don't know if we have to bid that or just go out and, or just right now, just look at prices, or not an official bid, or.
All we're simply doing, we're not buying anything, so we're just
Just shopping.
getting quotes and shopping. And if the quotes are co-stars, we would not have to bid those if they're co-stars.
All right, so I could get with Frank and just ask him to start looking into those prices and get some numbers together.
My
Right,
recommendation,
and now is a good time to plan for that stuff as we go throughout the year before we, get into crunch time at a budget
Yeah,
trying to make
absolutely.
ends meet. So
Absolutely.
it'd be nice to know what something.
Gotcha.
I mean, if, as just a general RFP, I mean, there's no commitment by the contractor or us.
Right.
That's fine. I think it's a good idea.
Okay,
Anything else, Mr. Dabascus?
no, thank you.
Finance Committee, Mr. Keating.
Just a few things. I noticed, for the first time, we have, cash balance, reports for all of our accounts, and we have, year-to-date, budget as compared to actuals. And, I'd like to thank, Mr. Whittiak for putting that together. And it's the first time since I'm sitting here as a board member that I've been able to look at something like this to gauge where we stand financially. So thanks, Tom, for doing that.
Yes, thank you.
If I could just, Tom, is there anything from these numbers that jumps out to you as a concern or anything like that?
Not yet.
Not yet?
No.
So this is really just reflecting 1 month of our fiscal
Just
year.
July, yep.
And again, I think what's useful about it though, Brian, is as we go along each and every month, gauging that year to date and percentage of spent or percentage of collected, it gives us a better understanding of where we are and what our trajectory is as we move throughout the year.
And what I'd also like to do too is when we look at the different, like 1,100. If we look at averages amongst the state budgets, like some state budgets, you'll say that 60% should be for educational, and I wonder how we fit into those state averages for spending in each individual category.
Yeah,
mean,
I'd have to look. I,
Yeah, I mean, but that's something to keep an eye on.
And again, this is finance, but I think it also overlaps a little into building and grounds, but I think we should start to put a plan together as to how we're going to proceed with selling the Schuyler Avenue property. And, we have multiple options on that. I mean, I think the most expensive would be just engaging the services of a realtor that's going to take a high percentage of our return on that building. There's the avenue of engaging a consultant, which actually may be a realtor at some, reduced fee to help us with doing this, or to simply have the solicitor put together a request for proposals on that, a bid taking the highest responsible bid, with the board having the right to reject any and all. But I think we should think about how we want to do that. And the other thing that I would ask, since we already have a budget, is if we do sell that during this school year, that whatever the net proceeds are, we put that in our capital projects account. And just as Brian brought up earlier, there's a need at the stadium. There may be other needs to put this money to good use for the school. That's all I have.
I totally agree with you. We got to start, we should move forward and strike while the iron's hot. I mean, it's not doing us any good, and it's just gonna cost us money over the winter, leave it sit.
Companies have reached out to us at interested parties, correct?
I've received quite a few calls, and
We did too.
kind
I
kind
did
of
as
like
well.
to just have the board agree on how they'd like to proceed with this, and get on. It's to our benefit, to the board's benefit, school's
Well,
benefit.
Well, if with everybody's kind of in a little bit of agreement here, I think we should add this to the agenda for next week.
Or at least, to the work, this is our work session.
Rick, I
Well-
think one thing that's probably important is to find out, because property values are all over the place. It depends where you are, what street you are, what town you're in. It would seem a really good starting point might just be find a true market value for the property, or market value and then perhaps an appraised value,
Appraised, an
something
appraisal.
comparative. So we at least have an idea of what would be a good offer.
And Bill, I totally agree, because, we've sold properties in the municipality like that. And what we first obtained an appraisal and put that as the minimum, whatever that appraised value is, that's the minimum amount that we would accept on the bid, and let the highest bidder come in, equal to or above that number. And again, most important is that the board has the right to reject any and all if something were to come in that we don't feel is of benefit to the district.
Into the neighborhood.
So,
right? Into the
so,
neighborhood, including,
I'm sorry, Jenny.
I'm sorry, no, I just said, and including the neighborhood surrounding, do the
So-
right things,
So for next week, I mean, do we want to put an RFP out for appraisers? I mean, how do we
Well,
want to handle this?
I-
I mean, what's
I think-
anybody's suggestions?
That's a professional service. Do we really want to go down the road of an RFP for an appraiser?
There's just a few guys who do commercial appraisals.
Right,
in my
so, I
experience.
mean-
There's a few,
So,
probably ask them, find out what, where they want to come in at, and then, but I think your biggest exposure is on the sale. I think you should be competitive with that in the sense of making sure you get a competitive bid through an RFP, because, it'll be from 0 to 6%. Is about the norm, so I'm sure some realtors may come in lower than 6, and that's where the district would save. And I think that's where you're, from the taxpayer standpoint, would be the smartest thing to do.
absolutely.
I agree,
And totally transparent.
absolutely. Anything else?
Not at this time, no.
Technology and communications.
No update.
Update. Contracts personnel, you good?
Again, yeah, just, I've been following emails about our support staff. I spoke with Mrs. Troy, today, Miss Troy, I'm sorry, about, setting up interviews for, positions that are needed in the district. And I'd like to get together, kind of with the personnel committee and the building and grounds committee, to talk about our support staff needs, over the next month.
Absolutely. ARP, Mr. Hardwick. Do you have anything for the Essers?
I'll just briefly recap. Esser's one, complete, all the dollars spent. I'd look to Mr. Navraki or Mr. Widiak if they want to support anything. Esser's two, at this point, that's $7.393 million grant, which we've been receiving funds and have used funds from. The spend by date is 2023, so but that money, I believe, is all allocated for.
Yes.
And Esser's three, that's 14,955,068. And we know that one of the big areas for that is the high school and the ventilation systems. So we're continually, I believe, Mr. Widiak, receiving funds periodically and using them as they're seen fit.
Anything else, Mr. Hardwick?
Not on Esser's.
If I could just follow up with that, Mr. Widiak, would you be able to give the board for next Wednesday potentially just an update on Essers? Now, we look at our agenda, there's a lot of, some of these contracts are starting to come in now for Essers too. To kind of, so we know where our balance is at, where we're under, because we know we're going to be under on Essers two amounts, and as to, so I know there was some discussion on State Street using it for the AC system up there as well last, 2 weeks ago. So if you could kind of just give the board a breakdown of that as to where we sit.
Okay.
That'd be greatly appreciated.
We actually just talked about that this afternoon, about trying to put together a one-page synopsis that would provide an update. Just very similar to what Mr. Widiak put together budget-wise, just giving you a snapshot of Esser's two and Esser's three.
Thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Dickon is not here this evening. Again, anything with the Special Education Committee?
Just to remind people, it's a newly formed committee, so we're kind of getting our feet on the ground. There's a lot involved with special education as I'm continuing to learn. We do have, I'm limited in what we can talk about, so we have progress moving forward on two different cases, but I need to find out through our solicitor and Mario what I can present and can't present in future meetings. So to this point, my report's pretty limited.
Thank you, sir. I'll go last. I mean, I'd like to give a very brief update on buildings and grounds. I mean, as you can see on our agenda, we're starting to move forward with Essers too. So I mean, that's actually pretty exciting. Get some of this ventilation work done and this climate control in this building for these children and our staff and our teachers. I'm excited about it, very much so. Mr. Rivera is not here this evening, but I would like to get for the board an update as to where we sit with our electrical lighting, our electrical contract. I mean, I don't know if we're 60%, 70%. I'm not quite certain, Mr. Widiak, if you even are aware of how much is even paid out at this point
To which contract?
for our ESSCO.
You're talking, there was they borrowed money last summer, I believe, the acronym was the ESCO project. Last we heard, probably late spring of this year, that it was 80 to 90% completed, but I know during the budgeting process, and this might be of value to you, Tom, that capital projects account, there was still a few $1,000,000, almost $2 million of outstanding payments due on the ESCO materials and supplies for outfitting all of these buildings with new energy efficient fixtures. So I'm wondering if that capital balance is the true balance, or we have to still deduct outstanding cost from this project that's been going on for the last year.
All right, I'll talk to Frank and see.
And Tracy should know, because that's who I corresponded with
Okay.
on the email. So she should know if there are still balances due on ESCO that would have to be deducted from your capital projects balance that you have there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Keating, just, my brain is just spinning here as you were speaking. Wasn't it in like 3 more years or 4 more years, we have a $5 million balloon payment?
I don't recall the number. There's an amortization schedule out there on that, but it seems to me that if I recall right, when you get into the 23-24 school year, that the debt service schedule may be a real challenge.
So, Mr. Whittiak, if you could familiarize yourself with that, so you're well versed in that, because that might be one of your challenges going forward.
Okay.
Just so you're up to speed on it.
And Rick, to that regard, if that's true, and things stay the same or get even worse with the investment markets, that problem's a lot worse than what we thought it was back when rates were still somewhat on our side, because the ability to go out then and refinance that is not there, and that could be a major financial hurdle for the district.
Thank you, both. So I would also, to add out to Mr. Keating, I'd like to get together with the contract committee, buildings and grounds. I want to try to really start honing in on this paraprofessional contract, our support services, so we could try to get that done here relatively soon. There's definitely some needs out there, but there's definitely a hard look that we could look into that contract to potentially shave a few dollars or whatever we got to do to finish that up. I don't know, shit, save us a few dollars is the right words, but we kind of look at the positions, if you will. Just look them over. That's all I'm trying to do. That's all I have.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, I just wanted to, number 14 of the general stuff. I just wanted to make note, and again, perhaps Mr. Navraki can add in. I don't know if anybody's had a chance to look over. Actually, my title page didn't print out the ATSI plan, but I did look through the plan. Very well put together. I believe Tara Carey kind of drove this, Principal Carey.
Right.
If you could just explain what it is a little bit.
So ATSI is a designation that goes to certain schools for targeted support needed in different areas. Our high school fell under the additional target support for special education, attendance rates, and I believe it was English language arts scores. So those, we were also a target for math. We've been labeled that since 2019. Last year, we were able to get rid of the label that involved the mathematics, and we're down to attendance and English language arts. So the plan is kind of a continuation with a few more areas added from Mrs. Carey, who did a phenomenal job with it. And it was submitted, I believe, last week. And hopefully, there's no word yet. Usually sometime in the fall, the Department of Ed, they do their designation. So either will be lifted or we'll have a new designation. We don't know yet, but that's basically the synopsis of ATSI.
Mr. Rocky, does that have anything to do with that meeting we had at central office?
It's
regarding-
kind of connected.
Connected, okay.
The comp plan, the district comp plans, they like them to kind of mimic what some of the ATSI, or there's also called CSI schools. We are not designated as CSI. We're just, our high school is designated ATSI. So we try to, keep them as close as possible. They're not identical,
Right,
but they're kind of
Consistent.
similar, right?
thank you.
That's it. I just wanted to make sure that we're aware of the plan. I think it's well put together. I do believe we should try to, and maybe it's perhaps through the education committee, just keep this on our radar and perhaps quarterly at some point revisit and see how the goals versus the mission are working out.
Anything else? Good. Staff recommended action items. Is there any questions underneath any of this? Anybody? Well, I would like to just say that thanks to all parties involved. There were some lengthy interviews. Mr. Rocky was there, Mr. Tosh, Mr. Bond, Mr. Keating, myself, Mr. Hardwick, Mrs. Troy was there. So there was some long, and we had a lot of great applicants. I think this is a great list, so I'm pretty excited. Finance recommended action items. Do you have anything, Mr.? Let's go around the table. Board member comments. Mr. Hardwick,
I'm good. Thank you.
Mrs. Cassatt,
Here's to a good school year.
Mr. Keating,
I'm good also. I'd just like to commend the staff for a smooth transition into this into the school year for all. Thanks.
Mr. Brzezinski,
What?
do you have any comments?
No, not at this time. Everything's running smooth.
Mr. Perfetto,
No, I don't, but I do appreciate what did take place. I happened to be up at State Street yesterday, and there must have been 25 to 28 buses loading at the same time. And I don't think they lost the student or misplaced the student up there. And there were a lot of youngsters getting on those buses. And it took an extra half hour, 45 minutes, but it ran very smooth.
that's great to hear. That's great to hear.
Staff had a lot to do with it.
Good. It's excellent. I have nothing at this time. So our next scheduled meeting is September 14th at 7 p.m.
That's for the open meeting, right?
That's our voting meeting. All meetings are open, Mr. Brzezinski. That's our actual voting meeting where everything that's in front of us this evening will actually vote on with a couple additions that we made this evening. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.